So Chris Eubank Jr. and Liam Smith
Beefy.
are supposedly in talks for a showdown on December 17th. Looks like December's shaping up to be a busy month for boxing, I must say. I first saw this news when G-Man spoke about it yesterday in his midweek report. I think he's done a video since then. And I thought I'd just share my sentiments on this fight. I think it's a good next step, not only from potentially an entertainment perspective, but also a managerial perspective. And G-Man touched on these points that I'm about to go through now. Because if you look at it from a managerial perspective, in terms of Eubank Jr.'s market value, I guess his financial side and a fight that sells, Eubank Jr. has a bit of a newfound fandom off the back of the Conor Benn fight falling through. That whole controversy was obviously a massive black eye for boxing, and it's dragged boxing through the mud, especially UK boxing. But the way that Chris Eubank Jr. has conducted himself and basically met all the demands that were imposed on him to make that fight and go through that fight, a lot of people have been impressed, and he's kind of endeared himself to a lot of the people who basically hated him. Because, you know, you have fighters who are disliked and some people feel indifferent, but the Eubanks, mostly Eubank Senior and Eubank Junior, I'd say they're two of the few fighters and personalities in boxing who people genuinely hate for whatever reason. But if you go into the comment section of a lot of Eubank Jr.'s Instagram and Twitter posts, you'll see people quite candidly saying, never used to like you before, but the way you've conducted yourself is amazing. You've earned a fan in me. And people are just really changing their tune and seem to be really fond of Eubank Jr. And I can understand that, you know, as hardcore boxing fans, we largely feel indifferent. We have fighters that entertain us, that don't entertain us, but casual fans, they like to support someone who resonates with them. And that seems to be someone in Chris Eubank Jr. So he's earned a lot of new fans over the past weeks. And I think it'd be really a bit of a misstep if his management team didn't capitalise on that and get him out before the end of the year. So I think regardless if it's Liam Smith or anyone else, Eubank Jr. should stay active, not only for performance sake, but also managerial and promotional sake. But then there also is the proposition of Liam Smith being the opponent. And I think historically we can look at Eubank Jr.'s form and we can see that, okay, pressure fighters who square up and come towards him and push the issue, he looks best against. He looks actually quite phenomenal at times when he's letting his hands go. Even years ago when Eubank Jr., I guess you could say, had less wrinkles to his game, he looked like an absolute phenom when he was in against a limited pressure fighter. I would expect Chris Eubank Jr. to win and beat Liam Smith probably every day of the week and twice on Sundays. But Liam Smith, I think it's fair to say, would be the most sophisticated pressure fighter that Eubank Jr. has been in with. I know Eubank Jr. has obviously fought Arthur Abraham and Avni Yildirim. In the case of Abraham, he was a good name, but way past his best. And that advanced stage of Abraham's career, he wasn't the hardest guy to beat, just because he'd present such little activity in a fight. You could pretty much just outwork him because he would not let his hands go. And that was really a routine and easy victory for Chris Eubank Jr. So I'd imagine that this version of Liam Smith, you know, in 2022 would be better than the 2017 version of Arthur Abraham. So I'd keep an eye on that fight. I think it'd be an interesting watch. As I say, I'd expect Eubank Jr. to win. But yeah, Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Smith, sign me up. I'd tune in, especially if it had a good undercard as well. And I think the build-up for that fight would it'd sell it even more. I think that'd be a decent build-up. And also, if you want to look at it from a not really a legacy point of view, but you can see it as Chris Eubank Jr. kind of tidying up loose ends, because he obviously beat Liam Williams earlier this year, and Liam Smith beat Liam Williams twice. So why not beat the superior fighter out of those two? And I think just to touch on the activity as well, Chris Eubank Jr. has really struggled to get any momentum over the past couple of years. He got a decent win over a completely shot James DeGale, really just beat him up for 12 rounds. Quite painful to watch, actually. I was there. Yeah, I was wincing for most of it. But later on in 2019, he had the fight against Korobov. Say fight, it was 2 rounds. Korobov injured his shoulder. And after that, obviously 2020, and very few fighters actually fought at all. I don't recall Chris Eubank Jr. fighting anyone, but I think that's when he was spending a lot of time with Roy Jones. And then May 2021 came, he had that gimme fight, that cherry pick against Marcus Morrison, where he carried Morrison for the 10 or 12 rounds, whatever it was. Basically just looked to consolidate what he'd learned under Roy Jones. Then Avdian, who was a late replacement. And, you know, Avdian, very deconditioned, but was slippery, you know, came out as a southpaw, kind of lanky, kind of tall, was able to time Eubank Jr., who was probably suffering from a bit of rust and in between styles. Eubank Jr. then fought Williams, looked pretty decent. And really, you couldn't ask for much more from that performance in terms of, you know, a result. Outpointed Williams after knocking him down 4 or 5 times. And then, of course, led up to this Conor Benn fight, which was just bizarre, complete circus. But it's like, okay, I guess we'll watch it, even though it is just absurd. Fell through, and, you know, you have to stay active. So some people may kind of poke holes at this matchup, or poke holes in this matchup, but, you know, I think it's acceptable, and I definitely tune in, to be honest. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on this potential fight. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you like this fight? Do you think it's a logical next step, or do you think it's a waste of time and you'd rather see Eubank Jr. in with, I don't know, someone else, you name it? Yeah, leave it down below and I'll get back to you. And as always, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.